A poor girl prayed for a dying millionaire until she said something that shocked the doctors, then a miracle happened. Her small, trembling hand slipped through the sterile hospital room door, and with a whisper that would shatter the silence of machines keeping him alive, 8-year-old Lydia spoke words that no one expected. Words that would change everything. Before we get deep into the story, please let me know in the comments where you're watching from. Hit subscribe if you're hooked in and ready to enjoy this story. Because tomorrow, I have another beautiful story to share with you, and I don't want you to miss it for anything. Now, let's get into the story. The fluorescent lights in Tucson General Hospital buzzed like angry wasps above Nancy's bed. Her once vibrant brown skin had faded to an ashen gray, and her breathing came in labored gasps that made 8-year-old Lydia's chest tighten with fear. "Mama, please wake up," Lydia whispered, her small hand wrapped around Nancy's cold fingers. "The doctors said you need to fight." But Nancy hadn't opened her eyes in 3 days. The cancer that had started in her lungs had spread like wildfire through her body, and the doctors spoke in hushed tones about comfort care and saying goodbye. Mrs. Rodriguez from next door had been taking care of Lydia, but even she looked at the little girl with eyes full of pity now. "Mija, maybe it's time to call social services." "No." Lydia's voice cracked with desperation. "She's going to be okay. She just needs. In her fevered delirium the night before, Nancy had gripped Lydia's wrist with surprising strength. Her eyes had fluttered open just long enough to whisper urgent, broken words. "William. Sterling. Miami. Your daddy. He'll help. Find him." Those words had burned themselves into Lydia's heart. Her daddy. The mysterious man Nancy sometimes cried about late at night. The one whose photograph was hidden in a jewelry box under their bed. Nancy had never told her his full name before, but now Lydia had it. William Sterling. In Miami. While Mrs. Rodriguez dozed in the hospital chair, Lydia had slipped away to the hospital computers in the waiting area. She'd learned to use the internet at school, and it didn't take long to find him. William Harrison Sterling, billionaire, Sterling Industries. The articles all mentioned Miami General Hospital, where his company had donated a new wing. "If he's my daddy, he'll help Mama," Lydia whispered to herself, memorizing his address, the hospital's location, everything she could find. That night, while Mrs. Rodriguez snored softly, Lydia made a decision that terrified and thrilled her in equal measure. She counted the crumpled bills Nancy kept in her purse, $87.34. Their entire savings. She kissed her mother's forehead one last time. "I'm going to find Daddy, Mama. He'll come back and save you. I promise." The Greyhound station in Tucson was a maze of confusing schedules and gruff adults who barely glanced at the small black girl with a backpack. Lydia had practiced her story. She was visiting her aunt in Miami. The ticket cost $65. Money that should have bought groceries, but desperation made her bold. "You traveling alone, honey?" the ticket agent asked, her concern genuine but fleeting. "My aunt's picking me up," Lydia lied, her heart hammering so loud she was sure everyone could hear it. The 26-hour bus ride became a blur of highway rest stops, crying when she thought no one was looking, and calling the hospital in Tucson from payphones whenever the bus stopped. Each time, the nurses said the same thing. "No change. Your mother is still unconscious." Miami hit her like a wall of humid heat and overwhelming noise. The city stretched in every direction, all glass towers and traffic that never seemed to stop. Lydia clutched her backpack, containing a change of clothes, the hidden photograph of her father, and $12 left from her journey, and tried not to cry. The taxi driver looked skeptical when she gave him Miami General Hospital's address, but her $20 bill, borrowed from a kind woman on the bus who thought she was buying food, convinced him to take her there. Miami General Hospital rose before her like something from a dream, all white marble and gleaming windows. This was where rich people came to get better, where miracles happened if you had enough money. Surely her father would be here, successful and healthy and ready to help. The information desk intimidated her with its polished perfection, but Lydia squared her shoulders and approached the receptionist. "I'm here to see William Sterling," she said, trying to sound older than 8. The woman's expression softened with something that looked like sympathy. "Oh, sweetie, are you family?" Lydia's chin lifted with fierce pride. "He's my daddy. Room 1247. ICU level." "But honey." The woman's voice trailed off, and Lydia saw something in her eyes that made her stomach drop. The elevator ride felt eternal. Each floor that passed brought her closer to the father she'd dreamed about her entire life. The man who would save her mother and make everything right. She imagined him sweeping her into strong arms, calling Nancy immediately, arranging for the best doctor's money could buy. The ICU doors opened to reveal a world of hushed voices and beeping machines. Room 1247 sat at the end of a corridor that felt miles long. Lydia's world shattered when she saw him. William Harrison Sterling, her father, her hero, her last hope, lay unconscious in a hospital bed that looked identical to her mother's. Machines surrounded him, monitoring every breath, every heartbeat. An oxygen mask covered his face, and his skin had the same greyish pallor that had terrified her in Nancy's hospital room. "Stage 4 pancreatic cancer," she heard a nurse whisper to a colleague. "Poor thing's been asking for someone named Nancy in his delirium. We can't figure out who that is. He's been alone since his mother died last year." Lydia's knees nearly buckled. Nancy, he'd been calling for her mother. And his cruel mother, the woman who had destroyed their family, was dead. Standing in that doorway, 8 years old and 800 miles from home, Lydia faced a reality no child should have to bear. Her mother was dying in Arizona. Her father was dying in Florida. She was completely alone in a world that suddenly felt impossibly big and cold. But something stirred in her young heart, something stronger than fear, deeper than despair. Both of her parents were fighting for their lives, and maybe, just maybe, love could be the miracle they all needed. What do you think gives a child the strength to face impossible odds when everything seems lost? Share your thoughts in the comments. Have you ever witnessed faith that defies all logic? Lydia stood frozen in the doorway of room 1247, her small frame trembling as she took in the sight before her. The man lying unconscious in the hospital bed looked so different from the photograph her mother had treasured. Older, frilier, his once strong features now gaunt from illness. But his eyes, even closed, held the same gentle shape Nancy had always said Lydia inherited. The steady beep of heart monitors filled the sterile air, punctuated by the rhythmic hiss of the ventilator helping him breathe. Tubes and wires connected him to an army of machines, each one fighting to keep William Harrison Sterling alive. The room smelled of antiseptic and something else, something that reminded Lydia of the way her mother's hospital room had begun to smell in recent days. Death. It was the smell of death creeping closer. "Excuse me, little girl, you can't be in here." Lydia spun around to find a tall nurse with kind eyes and graying hair approaching. Her name tag read Patricia, and her voice carried the gentle authority of someone who'd spent decades caring for the sick and dying. I'm his daughter," Lydia whispered, the words feeling strange and powerful on her tongue. Patricia's eyebrows shot up in surprise. "Mr. Sterling's daughter? Honey, his medical records don't show any children, and his emergency contacts." She paused, studying Lydia's face with growing curiosity. "What's your name, sweetheart?" "Lydia. Lydia Johnson." She straightened her shoulders, trying to look braver than she felt. "My mama is Nancy Johnson. She worked for him 9 years ago." The change in Patricia's expression was subtle, but unmistakable. Something flickered in her eyes. Recognition, perhaps, or understanding. She glanced at the unconscious man in the bed, then back at Lydia, and seemed to be putting puzzle pieces together. "Nancy," Patricia murmured softly. "He's been calling that name in his sleep. We thought it might be delirium, but—" She knelt down to Lydia's eye level, her voice dropping to a whisper. "Child, where is your mama? How did you get here alone?" Tears that Lydia had been holding back for hours finally spilled over. "She's dying too. In Tucson. The cancer. It's everywhere now, and she can't wake up, and I don't have money for her medicine, and I thought maybe he could help her if I found him. But now he's sick too, and I don't know what to do." The words poured out of her in a desperate rush, 8 years of questions, and longing and fear all tumbling together. Patricia's face softened with compassion, and she gently placed a hand on Lydia's shoulder. "Oh, honey, you came all this way by yourself." Lydia nodded, wiping her nose with the back of her hand. "On the bus. It took forever, and I was scared, but Mama needs him. She loves him. Even after all these years, she still loves him." Dr. Martinez, who had been checking another patient's chart nearby, approached them with curious concern. He was a young resident, barely 30, with dark hair and intelligent eyes that had seen too much suffering for someone his age. "Patricia, is everything all right? This child shouldn't be." "Dr. Martinez," Patricia interrupted quietly. "This is Lydia. She says she's Mr. Sterling's daughter." The doctor's skeptical expression mirrored Patricia's earlier reaction. "That's impossible. William Sterling has no children. His mother made that very clear when she updated his medical directives last year before she died." "His mother," Lydia repeated, her young voice carrying a weight of inherited pain. "She's the one who hurt my mama. She made her go away." Something in her tone made both medical professionals pause. Dr. Martinez knelt beside Patricia, studying Lydia's features with new interest. The shape of her eyes, the curve of her smile, even through her tears. There was something hauntingly familiar about her face when compared to the man lying unconscious just feet away. "Lydia," Dr. Martinez said gently, "can you tell us about your mother? What was her relationship with Mr. Sterling?" "Mama cleaned his house," Lydia said simply. "But then they fell in love. She said he was kind to her, that he made her laugh. But his mama found out and got really angry. She said terrible things to my mama and gave her money to go away and never come back. Mama was scared, so she moved us to Arizona, and then she found out she was having me." The medical staff exchanged meaningful glances. This story had the ring of truth, and it explained so much. William's mysterious depression after his mother's death, his constant muttering of Nancy, in his delirium, the way he seemed to be searching for something even in unconsciousness. "Lydia," Patricia said softly, "would you like to sit with him for a while? Sometimes, when people are very sick, they can hear voices even when they can't respond." Lydia nodded eagerly, and Patricia brought a chair close to the bedside. As Lydia climbed up, her small hand instinctively reached for William's. The moment their skin touched, something extraordinary happened. William's fingers, which had been limp and cold for days, seemed to twitch slightly. The heart monitor's rhythm, which had been sluggish and irregular, steadied into a stronger pattern. Dr. Martinez frowned, checking the readings twice. "That's unusual," he murmured. But Lydia wasn't paying attention to the machines. She was looking at her father's face, memorizing every line, every feature that might have been passed down to her. She thought of Nancy lying unconscious 800 miles away, fighting the same battle, and her young heart filled with a fierce determination. "Daddy," she whispered, the word feeling both foreign and perfectly natural. "I know you can't hear me, but I came to find you. Mama's sick too, and she needs you. She never stopped loving you, not even when your mama was mean to her." The machines continued their steady rhythm, but something in the room seemed to shift. Patricia noticed it too, a subtle change in the atmosphere, as if the air itself had become more charged with possibility. "Mama told me stories about you," Lydia continued, her voice growing stronger. "She said you had kind eyes and that you made her feel safe. She said you wanted to take care of her, but your mama wouldn't let you. I want you to know that Mama never blamed you. She said sometimes love isn't enough to fight against cruel people, but that doesn't mean the love wasn't real." Dr. Martinez was studying the monitors with increasing fascination. William's brain activity, which had been minimal for weeks, was showing spikes of activity. His breathing seemed less labored, and his color was marginally better. "This is impossible," he whispered to Patricia. "These readings, it's like his body is responding to her voice." But Lydia was lost in her own world now, pouring out 8 years of stored-up words to the father she'd never known. "I learned to read really good, Daddy. Mama taught me because she said education was the most important thing. And I can cook eggs and make sandwiches, and I help her clean the office buildings sometimes. I'm not scared of hard work because Mama says that's what makes you strong." Her voice caught on the next words. "But she's not strong anymore. The sickness made her so tired, and she can't fight it by herself. The doctors in Tucson said she needed expensive medicine and treatments, but we don't have money. Mama worked so hard, but it was never enough." The heart monitor's beeping grew stronger, more rhythmic. William's eyelids fluttered, almost imperceptibly. "I spent all our money to come find you," Lydia continued, tears streaming down her cheeks. "I know it was wrong to leave Mama, but she told me your name when she was dreaming, and I thought maybe you could save her. But you're sick too, and I don't know what to do now." She laid her head down on the side of the bed, her small hand still clutching William's. "I don't want to lose both of you before I even get to know you. It's not fair. Mama says life isn't always fair, but this feels too hard for one little girl to handle." Patricia wiped away her own tears, moved by the raw honesty of the child's words. Dr. Martinez continued monitoring the machines, documenting changes that defied medical explanation. "Please don't die, Daddy," Lydia whispered against the hospital blanket. "Please don't leave me all alone. I promise I'll be good, and I won't ask for expensive things, and I'll help take care of you, just like I tried to take care of Mama. Just please don't give up." And then, in a voice so soft that both medical professionals had to strain to hear it, Lydia began to pray. "God, I know I'm just a kid, and maybe I don't pray the right way, but I need help. My Mama and Daddy are both dying, and I don't understand why you'd let that happen. But Mama always said you have a plan, even when we can't see it." Her prayer was unlike anything Patricia had heard in 30 years of hospital work. Raw, honest, filled with a child's logic and an old soul's wisdom. "If you're going to take one of them, please take me instead. I'm smaller, so it wouldn't be as much trouble. But if you could maybe fix them both, I promise I'll be the best daughter ever. I'll never complain about anything, and I'll help other sick people, and I'll tell everyone about how good you are." Dr. Martinez's pen had stopped moving across his chart. The room seemed suspended in time, filled only with the sound of Lydia's whispered words and the steady rhythm of machines keeping William alive. "And God, if you can hear me, please help him remember my Mama. Help him remember that he loved her, and that she loved him back. Maybe if he remembers love, it'll give him a reason to fight." As if responding to her words, William's fingers moved. Not just a twitch this time, but an actual, deliberate movement that squeezed Lydia's hand. Both Patricia and Dr. Martinez froze, staring at the joined hands in amazement. "Did you see?" Dr. Martinez started. "I saw it," Patricia whispered. But Lydia was still praying, unaware of the miracle beginning to unfold around her. "Please help my Daddy remember that he has a daughter who needs him. Help him know that I came all this way because I believe in him. And help my Mama hold on until we can come home together. I know it's a lot to ask, but Mama says you're big enough to handle big problems." William's eyelids fluttered again, more noticeably this time. The heart monitor showed a strong, steady rhythm that hadn't been there in weeks. Dr. Martinez rushed to check William's pupils, his breathing, his reflexes. "This is medically impossible," he muttered, but his voice carried wonder rather than skepticism. Lydia finally looked up, noticing the activity around her. "What's happening? Is he getting worse?" "No, sweetheart," Patricia said, her voice thick with emotion. "I think he's getting better." As if to prove her words, William Harrison Sterling's eyes opened for the first time in 4 days. They were unfocused at first, blinking against the harsh hospital lights, but then they found Lydia's face. For a moment that felt eternal, father and daughter looked at each other. William's eyes, the same warm brown as Lydia's, widened with recognition and something that looked like wonder. His lips moved behind the oxygen mask, trying to form words. Dr. Martinez quickly adjusted the mask, helping him speak. "Nancy," William whispered, his voice barely audible. "You look just like—" "I'm Lydia," she said simply, squeezing his hand. "I'm your daughter. And Mama's really sick, Daddy. She needs you." The impact of her words hit William like a physical blow. His eyes filled with tears as understanding dawned. This beautiful child, this miracle sitting beside his bed, was his daughter. Nancy's daughter. The love he'd lost had created something perfect and precious, and brave enough to travel across the country to find him. "My daughter," he whispered, and the words seemed to give him strength. The monitors showed continued improvement, readings that made Dr. Martinez shake his head in disbelief. Have you ever witnessed a moment where love seemed to literally heal someone? Share your story in the comments below. Sometimes the most powerful medicine isn't found in any pharmacy. But even as William's eyes grew clearer and his breathing stronger, Lydia knew this was only the beginning. They'd found each other, but Nancy was still fighting for her life 800 miles away, and time was running out for all of them. William's fingers trembled as they traced the outline of Lydia's face, his touch feather-light and reverent. Even with oxygen flowing through his system and medications coursing through his veins, he seemed stronger somehow, as if the simple act of acknowledging his daughter had awakened something deep within him that the cancer couldn't touch. 8 years old, he whispered, his voice growing clearer with each word. Nancy, she was pregnant when your mama made her leave, Lydia finished quietly, her young wisdom cutting through his confusion. She was scared to tell you. She didn't want to make more trouble. The weight of that revelation hit William like a physical blow. His mother, Margaret Sterling, the iron-willed matriarch who had controlled every aspect of his life until her death, had not only destroyed his chance at love, but had unknowingly sent away his unborn child. The woman who had spent years lamenting his bachelor status, who had pestered him endlessly about continuing the Sterling legacy, had banished her own grandchild. Dr. Martinez approached the bedside cautiously, his medical training warring with the inexplicable recovery he was witnessing. "Mr. Sterling, I need to run some tests. Your improvement is unprecedented. Yesterday your organs were shutting down, and now I have a reason to live," William said simply, never taking his eyes off Lydia. "Doctor, my daughter says her mother is dying in Arizona. I need to know everything, her condition, her prognosis, what she needs." "Daddy," Lydia's voice broke slightly, "Mama's been sick for months. The cancer started in her lungs, but now it's everywhere. The doctors in Tucson said she needed surgery and special medicines, but we couldn't afford them. That's why I came to find you." William's heart clenched with a pain that had nothing to do with his own illness. While he'd been wallowing in grief over his mother's death, his Nancy, had been fighting for her life alone, raising their daughter in poverty, too proud or too frightened to reach out for help. "What hospital?" he demanded, trying to sit up straighter. The effort left him breathless, but his eyes blazed with determination. "What's her doctor's name?" Patricia pulled out her phone with practiced efficiency. "I'll call Tucson General and get her medical information. Mr. Sterling, you need to understand, you're still critically ill yourself. Your recovery is remarkable, but you're nowhere near stable enough to travel." "Then bring her here," William said without hesitation. "Medical transport, the best equipment available, whatever it costs." Dr. Martinez frowned. "Sir, that's incredibly expensive, and in her condition." "I don't care about the cost." William's voice carried the authority of a man accustomed to moving mountains with his words. "I have more money than I could spend in 10 lifetimes. What I don't have is time to waste while the mother of my child dies alone." Lydia watched this exchange with wide eyes, seeing her father truly awake for the first time. This was the man Nancy had fallen in love with, someone who took action, who fought for the people he cared about. But she could also see the toll it was taking on him. His face was still gaunt, his breathing labored despite the oxygen, and his hands shook with effort. "Daddy, you need to get better too," she said quietly. "What if something happens to you while you're trying to help Mama?" The question hung in the air like a challenge. William had spent months giving up, letting grief and illness consume him. But looking at this brave little girl who had crossed the country alone to save the people she loved, he felt ashamed of his surrender. "Then you'll have to be strong for both of us," he said, squeezing her hand. "Just like you've been strong for your mama." Patricia returned from her phone call, her expression grave. "I spoke with Dr. Chun at Tucson General. Nancy Johnson is in a coma. Multiple organ involvement, significant pleural effusion, and her kidneys are beginning to fail. She's..." She's not expected to survive more than 48 hours without immediate intervention. The words hit the room like a thunderbolt. Lydia made a small sound, not quite a gasp, not quite a sob, and William felt something fracture inside his chest. 48 hours, he repeated numbly. How long would medical transport take? Best case scenario, with weather and logistics? 12 hours to arrange, 6 hours flight time with a medical team. Dr. Martinez calculated aloud. But Mr. Sterling, the stress of transport in her condition, could kill her, William finished. And if we do nothing? We'll kill her, Patricia said softly. The silence that followed was broken only by the steady beeping of William's monitors and the sound of Lydia crying. Quiet tears that she tried to hide by turning her face away. I'm going to lose her, aren't I? Lydia whispered. I came all this way, and I found you, but it's too late for Mama. William felt something break open inside him. 9 years of regret, of wondering what might have been, of accepting his mother's version of what was appropriate for a Sterling. He thought of Nancy's smile, the way she'd made him laugh during those stolen moments when his mother wasn't watching, the way she'd believed in goodness even when the world had shown her little kindness. No, he said firmly, struggling to sit up despite Dr. Martinez's protests. We're not giving up. Not on her, not on us. Sir, you can barely breathe on your own. Then get me stronger, William demanded. Steroids, stimulants, whatever you have. I need to be functional enough to make decisions and sign papers. If Nancy dies because I was too weak to act, I'll never forgive myself. Dr. Martinez and Patricia exchanged concerned glances. What William was asking for was dangerous. Pushing his body beyond its current limits could cause his own organs to fail. Daddy, no, Lydia said, understanding the implications even at 8 years old. Don't hurt yourself trying to save Mama. She wouldn't want that. What would she want? William asked, his voice gentler now. Lydia was quiet for a long moment, considering. She'd want you to take care of me if something happens to her. She'd want me to be safe and loved, and to grow up knowing my daddy cared about me. The simple truth of it nearly undid him. Nancy, even dying, would put their daughter's well-being above her own survival. It was exactly the kind of selfless love that had drawn him to her in the first place. But I also think, Lydia continued, her young voice gaining strength, she'd want us to try everything we could. Mama never gave up on anything important. She worked 3 jobs when I was little just to keep us in our apartment. She walked 5 miles to work when our car broke down because she said giving up wasn't in our family. William studied his daughter's face, seeing Nancy's stubborn determination mixed with what he hoped might be his own strategic thinking. What if we brought the treatment to her? He said suddenly. Instead of moving her here, what if we moved the medical team there? Dr. Martinez blinked. I'm sorry, what? I want the best oncologists, surgeons, and equipment flown to Tucson General. Whatever Nancy needs, wherever she needs it. Transform that hospital into the Mayo Clinic, if necessary. That's not how medical systems work, Mr. Sterling. You can't just... I can and I will, William interrupted. I've donated enough to medical facilities over the years to know that miracles happen when you have the right resources and motivation. Get me the administrator of Tucson General on the phone. Patricia looked skeptical. Sir, even with unlimited funding, some things take time to coordinate. Specialized equipment, surgical teams. Then we start with what we can do immediately, William said. The best medications, the most aggressive treatments available. By time while we arrange everything else. His hands were shaking with effort, but his voice carried absolute conviction. Lydia watched him with growing hope, seeing her father transform before her eyes from a dying man into the determined businessman who had built an empire. But even as plans began forming, William knew he was racing against impossible odds. Nancy had less than 2 days, and he was trying to coordinate a medical miracle from his own hospital bed while fighting a disease that wanted to kill him. Daddy, Lydia said quietly, what if the doctors in Tucson won't listen to us? What if they think we're just some little girl and a sick man who don't know what we're talking about? It was a valid concern. William's reputation might open doors, but his current condition didn't exactly inspire confidence. And Lydia, despite her remarkable journey and mature insights, was still an 8-year-old girl in a world that rarely took children seriously. "Then we make them listen," William said. "Lydia, I need you to do something very brave. Can you call Mrs. Rodriguez, the lady who was taking care of you? Tell her you're safe and that help is coming for your mama." Lydia nodded, accepting the phone Patricia offered. "Mrs. Rodriguez? It's Lydia. Yes, I'm okay. I found him. I found my daddy. No, I'm in Miami. Please listen, this is important." While Lydia explained the situation to their bewildered neighbor, William closed his eyes and tried to summon strength he wasn't sure he possessed. Every breath was still a struggle, every heartbeat uncertain. But for the first time in months, he had something worth fighting for. The conversation was interrupted by a commotion in the hallway. Raised voices, hurried footsteps, and then Dr. Sarah Chun, the hospital's chief of staff, appeared in the doorway. William had met her at various charity functions over the years, a brilliant physician and administrator who had never seemed particularly impressed by his wealth or status. "Mr. Sterling," Dr. Chun said without preamble, "I just received the most unusual phone call from Tucson General Hospital. They claim you're trying to arrange some sort of medical intervention for a patient named Nancy Johnson, and that you're—" Her eyes found Lydia. "Claiming she's the mother of your child?" The room fell silent. This was the moment of truth. Would the medical establishment take seriously the desperate plans of a dying billionaire and an 8-year-old girl? "It's not a claim," William said quietly. "It's the truth. Nancy Johnson is the woman I should have married 9 years ago. Lydia is our daughter. And if you help me save Nancy's life, I'll donate $50 million to this hospital's cancer research program." Dr. Chen's eyebrows shot up. "Mr. Sterling, you can't just—" "60 million, William interrupted. "And another 40 to Tucson General to upgrade their oncology unit. What would you do if you had unlimited resources, but limited time to save someone you love? Share your thoughts below. Sometimes the biggest obstacles aren't financial, but the systems and people who decide what's possible." "Daddy," Lydia tugged at his hospital gown, "you don't have to pay people to care about Mama. She's worth saving just because she's good." The simple statement hit everyone in the room like a revelation. Here was a child who understood something that adults often forgot. That some things were priceless not because they cost a fortune, but because they were irreplaceable. Dr. Chun looked from William to Lydia and back again, and something in her professional demeanor softened. "Tell me about her condition," she said finally. "Tell me everything." As William and the medical team began discussing Nancy's case in earnest, Lydia felt a flutter of hope. But she also understood, with the wisdom that comes from watching a parent suffer, that hope and miracles weren't the same thing. They still had to bridge 800 miles, overcome medical impossibilities, and race against a clock that was ticking toward tragedy. Outside the hospital window, Miami's afternoon sun was setting, painting the sky in shades of orange and pink. In Tucson, Nancy lay unconscious while machines monitored her failing body. And somewhere between those 2 points, 3 lives hung in the balance, connected by love, separated by distance, and running out of time. The real battle was just beginning. Dr. Chen's expression was grave as she ended her 3rd phone call in 10 minutes. The medical logistics were staggering, coordinating teams across state lines, arranging for equipment that existed in only a handful of hospitals nationwide, and doing it all with a dying patient whose condition was deteriorating by the hour. "We have a problem," she announced to the room. "Nancy's kidneys have started failing faster than expected. Dr. Patel in Tucson says she has maybe 18 hours, not 48. William felt the words hit him like physical blows. 18 hours. Even with unlimited resources, even with teams of specialists mobilizing across the country, 18 hours might not be enough to bridge the gap between Miami's medical capabilities and Nancy's bedside in Arizona. "Then we go to her," he said, struggling to sit up despite Dr. Martinez's immediate protests. "Medical jet, portable ICU, whatever it takes. I'm not letting her die alone. Mr. Sterling, you can't possibly travel in your condition." "Watch me," William interrupted, his voice carrying steel that surprised everyone in the room, including himself. Lydia, I need you to call Mrs. Rodriguez again. Tell her to stay with your mama, to hold her hand, and let her know we're coming. But even as he spoke, William knew the impossible mathematics working against them. Flight time, weather delays, the logistics of moving critical care equipment, his own fragile health. Every factor seemed designed to ensure they would arrive too late. Lydia, who had been quietly listening to the adult conversations with the patience of a child forced to grow up too quickly, suddenly spoke up. What if we don't wait? The adults turned to look at her, confused by the simplicity of her question. I mean, Lydia continued, her 8-year-old logic cutting through the complex medical planning. What if we start helping Mama right now from here? Like, what if Daddy could talk to her through the phone and tell her to fight? Dr. Chen started to explain why that wouldn't work medically, but William held up a hand, his businessman's mind suddenly racing. Lydia was right. They were thinking about this all wrong. They didn't need to physically transport miracles across the country. They needed to start creating them immediately, right where Nancy was. Dr. Chen, I want you to patch me through to Nancy's room in Tucson. Video conference, full medical consultation setup. I want to see her, and I want her to hear my voice. Sir, she's in a coma. She can't. She heard me 9 years ago when I whispered that I loved her, William said quietly. She heard Lydia when our daughter prayed for both of us just hours ago. Maybe she'll hear me now. Dr. Martinez was checking William's monitors with growing concern. The emotional stress and physical exertion of the past few hours were taking their toll. His heart rate was elevated, his breathing more labored, and his color was beginning to fade again. Mr. Sterling, you need to rest. This level of stress could cause your own condition to what? Get worse. William's laugh was bitter but determined. Doctor, 3 weeks ago you told me I had days to live. Yesterday, I couldn't open my eyes. Today I'm sitting up making phone calls, because my daughter had the courage to travel 800 miles to save her family. I think we're beyond normal medical predictions. As if to prove his point, the monitors showed William's vital signs stabilizing as he focused on action rather than illness. His voice grew stronger, his movements more purposeful. It was as if having a mission had awakened something in his body that cancer couldn't touch. Patricia, I need you to coordinate with the pharmacy. Whatever experimental treatments they have for Nancy's type of cancer, whatever drugs aren't even approved yet, get them to Tucson General. Money is no object. And get Dr. Sarah Kim from Johns Hopkins on the line, he continued, his mind working at the speed it hadn't reached in months. She's been developing targeted immunotherapy for aggressive lung cancers. If anyone can create a treatment protocol for Nancy's specific situation, it's her. Dr. Chun was frantically taking notes, but her expression remained skeptical. Mr. Sterling, even with unlimited funding, some things can't be rushed. Drug trials, safety protocols. Compassionate use, William said firmly. Emergency FDA approval. I've donated enough money to medical research over the years to know that bureaucracy bends when lives are truly at stake. Lydia had climbed into the hospital bed beside her father, her small hand resting on his arm, as if she could lend him her strength. Daddy, tell me about Mama when she worked for you. What made you fall in love with her? The question seemed to come from nowhere, but William understood instinctively what his daughter was asking. She wanted him to remember the woman worth fighting for, to connect with the love that had created her and might now have the power to save them all. Your mother, William said, his voice softening as memories flooded back, had this laugh that could fill an entire room. She was cleaning the kitchen one morning when I came down for coffee, and she was singing to herself, some old gospel song her grandmother taught her. She was so embarrassed when she saw me, but I asked her to keep singing. His eyes closed as he remembered. She was kind to everyone, the gardener, the delivery drivers, even my mother when my mother was difficult. Nancy saw good in people, even when they didn't deserve it. She still does, Lydia said quietly. Even when kids at school were mean about our old clothes or our tiny apartment, Mama always said they were probably just scared or sad about something in their own lives. William felt his chest tighten with emotion and something else. A surge of energy that seemed to flow from his memories of Nancy, from Lydia's presence beside him, from the sheer impossibility of giving up now. Dr. Chun, is that video conference ready? Mr. Sterling, I really don't think. Please, William said simply. Let me try to reach her. The large monitor in his hospital room flickered to life, showing Nancy's ICU room in Tucson General Hospital, 800 miles away. The sight that greeted them was devastating. Nancy looked even frilier than William remembered from his own worst days, surrounded by machines that seemed to be doing most of the work of keeping her alive. Mrs. Rodriguez sat in a chair beside the bed, holding Nancy's limp hand and speaking softly in Spanish. She looked up in surprise when the video connection activated. Lydia? Mija, where are you? I'm in Miami, Mrs. Rodriguez. I found my daddy, and he's going to help Mama. The older woman's eyes widened as she took in William's appearance on the screen. Despite his illness, despite the hospital setting, there was something unmistakably powerful about his presence. The bearing of a man accustomed to making things happen. Mr. Sterling, Mrs. Rodriguez said carefully, Nancy talked about you sometimes. She never stopped loving you. William felt tears he didn't know he had left begin to fall. Mrs. Rodriguez, can you hold the camera closer to Nancy? I need her to hear my voice. As the image shifted to show Nancy's peaceful face, William began to speak, his voice carrying across 800 miles of desert and hope. Nancy, it's me. It's William. Our daughter found me. Our beautiful, brave daughter who has your eyes and your heart and your stubborn determination to save everyone she loves. On the monitor, Nancy's eyelids fluttered slightly. She told me about the years you spent alone, raising Lydia, working so hard to give her a good life. Nancy, I'm so sorry I wasn't there. I'm sorry I let my mother's fear and prejudice keep us apart. I'm sorry you had to be strong all by yourself for so long. Dr. Patel, Nancy's doctor in Tucson, appeared on screen, his expression one of professional skepticism mixed with curious hope. Mr. Sterling? I'm Dr. Patel. I have to tell you, Nancy's condition is extremely grave. Her body is shutting down, and we've exhausted most conventional treatments. Then let's try some unconventional ones, William said. Doctor, I'm arranging for experimental immunotherapy to be flown to your hospital within the next 4 hours. Dr. Sarah Kim from Johns Hopkins is developing the treatment protocol specifically for Nancy's case. Will you administer it? Dr. Patel's eyebrows shot up. Sir, experimental treatments require extensive paperwork, safety protocols. Doctor, William interrupted, if someone you loved was dying, and there was a chance, any chance, that an experimental treatment could save them, wouldn't you try it? The question hung in the air between Miami and Tucson. On the screen, Nancy's breathing seemed slightly stronger, though she remained unconscious. Yes, Dr. Patel admitted quietly. Yes, I would. Then help me save the mother of my child. What happened next would be remembered by everyone in both hospital rooms as the moment when medical science collided with something larger than itself. William leaned closer to the camera, his voice dropping to the intimate tone he'd once used when he and Nancy stole quiet moments together in his mother's house. Nancy, remember when we talked about running away together? You said you'd follow me anywhere, and I promised I'd never let anyone hurt you. I broke that promise once, but I won't break it again. On the screen, Nancy's hand moved. Just slightly, just barely, but both Mrs. Rodriguez and Dr. Patel saw it. I don't care what my mother said about us being from different worlds, William continued. I don't care about social expectations or appropriate matches or any of the lies that kept us apart. You are the love of my life, Nancy Johnson, and I need you to fight. I need you to come back to us. Lydia pressed closer to the camera. Mama, it's me. It's Lydia. Daddy's going to marry you this time, and we're going to be a real family. But you have to wake up first. You have to get better. The heart monitor in Nancy's room began beeping more rapidly, not with distress, but with strength. Her vital signs were improving, subtly but measurably. This is impossible, Dr. Patel whispered, but he was checking her readings with growing excitement. Her heart rate is strengthening, Her blood pressure is stabilizing. Dr. Chun, watching from Miami, was equally amazed. It's like her body is responding to emotional stimuli, as if the will to live was the missing component in her treatment. William felt his own energy surging. The act of fighting for Nancy, of taking action instead of accepting defeat, seemed to be healing him as well. His breathing was easier, his color better, his mind clearer than it had been in months. "Nancy," he said, his voice strong now, "I know you can hear me. Lydia needs her mother. I need my partner. And there's a whole world of people waiting to be inspired by your story, by our story. You don't get to give up now." And then, as if his words had reached across space and time and medical impossibility, Nancy's eyes opened. Mrs. Rodriguez gasped. Dr. Patel rushed to her bedside, and in Miami, 3 people held their breath as Nancy looked directly into the camera with recognition and love. "William," her voice was barely a whisper, but it carried clearly through the video connection. "I'm here," he said, tears streaming down his face. "We're here. All of us. Lydia." Nancy's eyes searched the screen until she found her daughter's face. "Hi, Mama," Lydia said, her 8-year-old composure finally breaking as she sobbed with relief and joy. "I told you I'd find him. I told you he'd help us." Have you ever witnessed a moment where love seemed to literally bring someone back to life? Share your story in the comments below. Sometimes the most powerful healing happens when we believe in each other enough to fight the impossible. The medical miracle that followed would be documented in journals, studied by researchers, and debated by skeptics for years to come. The experimental immunotherapy arrived at Tucson General within 3 hours, personally delivered by Dr. Kim herself. Nancy's response to treatment was unprecedented. Her cancer markers dropping, her organs beginning to function normally, her strength returning day by day. But everyone involved knew that the real miracle had happened in those moments when love refused to accept defeat, when a father's voice reached across impossible distance to call his beloved back from the edge of death, when an 8-year-old girl's faith proved stronger than any medical diagnosis. 2 weeks later, as Nancy sat up in her Tucson hospital bed, finally strong enough to travel, she held the phone and listened to William make arrangements for their reunion. "The jet will be there tomorrow morning," he was saying. "Full medical team on board, just in case. And Nancy? I've been planning something for when you get here." "What kind of something?" she asked, though her smile suggested she already knew. "The kind that involves a ring, and a question I should have asked you 9 years ago, and a little girl who wants to be the flower girl at our wedding." Through the phone, Nancy could hear Lydia in the background, shouting with excitement about dolphins and boats, and the beach house William had rented for their recovery. "William Sterling," Nancy said, her voice carrying the same warmth that had captivated him all those years ago. "Are you proposing to me over the phone from 800 miles away?" "Nancy Johnson," he replied. "I'm promising to spend the rest of my life making up for every day we lost, starting tomorrow when you come home to us." As Nancy hung up the phone, she looked out her hospital window at the Arizona sunset, painting the desert sky in brilliant oranges and pinks. Tomorrow, she would fly toward a new life. Not just the fairy tale reunion the media would celebrate, but the real work of building a family, healing from trauma, and learning to trust in love again. The miracle wasn't that they had survived their illnesses. The miracle was that they had found their way back to each other, guided by an 8-year-old girl whose faith had proved stronger than every obstacle in their path. In Miami, William stood at his hospital window, watching the sun set over Biscayne Bay, knowing that tomorrow would bring Nancy home and begin the greatest chapter of their impossible love story. The hardest part was over. Now came the beautiful part, the rest of their lives together. 2 months later, the morning sun streamed through the floor-to-ceiling windows of William's penthouse overlooking Biscayne Bay, casting golden light across a scene that would have seemed impossible just weeks earlier. Nancy sat curled in a plush armchair, her color fully returned, watching Lydia practice her reading with Patricia, who had become their live-in nurse and unofficial grandmother figure. The transformation had been swift and complete. Nancy's flight from Tucson to Miami had been a triumph. She'd walked off the medical jet under her own power, straight into William's arms, while photographers captured what the media called the reunion of the century. But the real miracle hadn't happened in front of cameras. It had happened in the quiet moments since. Morning coffee together, bedtime stories with Lydia, the simple domestic rhythms of a family learning to be together. "Daddy, look," Lydia called from the breakfast table, holding up a newspaper. "We're on the front page again." William smiled, settling beside Nancy with his own cup of coffee. The media attention had been overwhelming at first. The fairy tale romance, the medical miracles, the dramatic rescue across state lines. Every detail of their story had been dissected and celebrated, from William's near-death recovery to Lydia's brave journey to Nancy's impossible healing. "What does it say this time?" Nancy asked, though her tone suggested she was growing weary of the constant spotlight. "Sterling Industries announces billion-dollar medical initiative." Lydia read carefully, sounding out the bigger words. "Inspired by family's miracle recovery, Millionaire pledges to revolutionize cancer treatment for underprivileged patients." William had indeed made good on his promise. The Nancy and Lydia Sterling Foundation had been established with an initial endowment of $500 million, dedicated to ensuring that no family would face the choice between financial ruin and life-saving treatment. The foundation's first project was the construction of specialized cancer treatment centers in underserved communities across the country. "Mrs. Rodriguez called this morning," Nancy said, settling against William's shoulder. "The new clinic in Tucson is almost finished. She says the whole neighborhood is excited. Finally, a place where people can get real medical care without having to choose between treatment and keeping their homes." William felt the familiar warmth that came with doing work that mattered. For years, his charitable giving had been strategic, tax-efficient, and ultimately impersonal. Now, every dollar spent felt like a direct extension of their family's journey, a way of ensuring that other Nancys and Lydias wouldn't have to face impossible odds alone. "Daddy," Lydia said, climbing into his lap with the unconscious ease that still made his heart catch, "when can we visit the new hospital wing?" The pediatric oncology wing at Miami General was nearing completion. A state-of-the-art facility designed not just for medical treatment, but for healing in the fullest sense. Child life specialists, family support services, even a rooftop garden where young patients could feel sunshine and watch dolphins play in the bay below. "Next week," William said, kissing the top of her head. "Dr. Chen wants you to help cut the ribbon. And then we're going to see Mama's old school?" Lydia asked eagerly. Nancy laughed, the sound still music to William's ears after all these weeks. "It's not exactly a school, baby girl. It's the nursing program at Miami-Dade College. I start classes in the fall." It had been Nancy's decision, made after weeks of recovery and reflection. With their financial security assured, she could have chosen any path. Travel, luxury, a life of leisure that would have been understandable after years of struggle. Instead, she'd chosen to return to school, to become a registered nurse specializing in oncology care. "I want to help other families going through what we went through," she'd explained to William one evening as they walked along the beach. "I want to be the person who holds someone's hand when they're scared, who knows exactly what it feels like to watch someone you love fight for their life." William had fallen in love with her all over again in that moment, seeing the same selfless heart that had captivated him 9 years earlier, tempered now by experience and strengthened by purpose. A soft knock at the door interrupted their morning quiet. Patricia answered it, returning with Dr. Martinez, who had become not just William's physician, but a family friend. "Good morning, Sterling family," he said with a grin that had become increasingly common as he'd witnessed their collective recovery. "I have some news that I think you'll want to hear." William tensed slightly. Months of medical crises had left him hypervigilant about doctor visits, even routine ones. "Relax," Dr. Martinez said, reading his expression. "This is good news. Extraordinary news, actually." He settled into the chair across from them, pulling out a tablet with test results. "Your latest scans came back, William. Nancy's too. I've been practicing medicine for 15 years, and I've never seen anything like this." "Like what?" Nancy asked, reaching for William's hand. "Complete remission. Both of you. Not just improved, completely clear. No detectable cancer cells, no residual markers, nothing. It's as if the disease never existed. The words hung in the air, almost too good to process. After months of cautious optimism, of waiting for the other shoe to drop, the reality of true healing felt almost surreal. How is that possible? William asked. I mean, we hoped, but... Dr. Martinez shook his head in wonder. Medically speaking, it shouldn't be possible. Your cancers were both stage 4, aggressive, with poor prognosis even with the best treatment. But sometimes, rarely, but sometimes, we see cases that defy every prediction. The doctors in Tucson are calling it the Sterling effect, he continued with a smile. The combination of cutting-edge treatment, unlimited resources, and what they're diplomatically calling enhanced psychosocial support factors. They mean love, Lydia said matter-of-factly, causing all the adults to laugh. They just don't want to write love in their science books because it sounds silly. Dr. Martinez chuckled. Out of the mouths of babes. Lydia, you might be the wisest person in this room. As Dr. Martinez left, the family sat in comfortable silence, absorbing the news. Complete remission. The words felt like a gift too precious to unwrap fully, but also like a responsibility, a chance to make their miracle mean something beyond their own happiness. There's something I want to show you, William said, reaching for his laptop. I've been working on this with the foundation board. The screen displayed architectural plans for a sprawling complex. Not just a hospital, but a comprehensive family support center with housing for out-of-town families, educational facilities for children undergoing long-term treatment, and counseling services for parents facing impossible diagnoses. It's going to be called the Lydia's Journey Center for Family Healing, William explained. Named after the bravest person I know, a little girl who refused to give up on her family. Lydia stared at the plans with wide eyes. That's really named after me? After your courage, Nancy corrected gently. After what you showed all of us about faith and determination. The center would be built in Phoenix, accessible to families throughout the Southwest. Families like theirs had been, facing devastating diagnoses without resources or support. It would be a place where no parent would have to choose between staying with their sick child and keeping their job, where no family would face medical bills that meant losing their home. Can we visit the families there? Lydia asked. Can I read to the kids like I do at the hospital here? Every weekend, if you want to, William promised. As the morning progressed, calls came in from across the country. Updates on construction projects, invitations to medical conferences where they'd been asked to speak, messages from families whose lives had been changed by their foundation's work. The Sterling family miracle had become a catalyst for healing that reached far beyond their own story. But the most meaningful moment came in the afternoon, when they received a video call from Mrs. Rodriguez in Tucson. She was standing in the lobby of the newly opened Sterling Community Health Center, surrounded by families from their old neighborhood. Mira, Lydia, Mrs. Rodriguez said, turning the camera to show the bustling clinic. You see this? This is what your bravery built. Families are getting help here because you were brave enough to get on that bus. Through the video connection, they could see children playing in a bright waiting area, parents consulting with specialists who had never been accessible to their community before, hope replacing despair in places where hope had been a luxury they couldn't afford. Mrs. Rodriguez, Nancy said, her voice thick with emotion. How are the families responding? Mija, yesterday I met a woman whose daughter has leukemia. She was working 3 jobs, sleeping in her car between shifts, so she could stay near the hospital. Today, she has a room in the family housing unit. Her daughter is getting the best treatment available, and she doesn't have to choose between her child's health and keeping a roof over their heads. Lydia pressed closer to the screen. Is the little girl going to be okay? She's going to have every chance to be okay, Mrs. Rodriguez said with a smile. Just like you gave your mama and daddy every chance to be okay. That evening, as Miami's sunset painted the sky in brilliant oranges and pinks, the Sterling family stood on their balcony watching dolphins play in the bay below. It had become their evening ritual, a moment of gratitude for each day they had together, each day they had been given beyond what seemed possible. Daddy, Lydia said, breaking the comfortable silence. What happened to your mean mama? The one who was cruel to my mama? William and Nancy had been dreading this question, but they'd also been preparing for it. Lydia deserved the truth, age-appropriate but honest. She died a few years ago, William said gently. She was very sick, and very sad, and very alone. I think she spent her last days wishing she had made different choices. Was she sorry for being mean to Mama? Nancy knelt to Lydia's level, taking her small hands. I don't know if she was sorry, baby girl. But I hope she found peace. Being angry at someone who's gone doesn't hurt them. It only hurts us. So we choose to forgive, not for her sake, but for ours. Lydia considered this with the seriousness she brought to all important matters. I'm glad she's not around to be mean anymore. But I'm sad she never got to meet me. Maybe if she had known me, she would have been nicer. The simple wisdom of her response left both adults speechless. Here was a child who had every reason to hate the woman who had caused her family such pain, instead offering compassion for someone she'd never met. You know what I think? Lydia continued, looking out at the dolphins. I think God sometimes lets bad things happen, so that good people can show how strong love really is. Like, maybe your mean mama was supposed to teach us that nothing can stop love if it's real love. William felt tears on his cheeks. Not tears of sadness, but of overwhelming gratitude for this wise, generous-hearted child who had saved them all. 6 months later, on a sunset cruise in Biscayne Bay, William Harrison Sterling married Nancy Johnson in a ceremony that made headlines not for its extravagance, but for its joy. Lydia served as flower girl, scattering rose petals while dolphins played in the background as if choreographed. The guest list was small but meaningful. Patricia and Dr. Martinez, Mrs. Rodriguez, who had flown in from Arizona, Dr. Chen, whose hospital had become a model for compassionate care, and Dr. Patel, who had traveled from Tucson to witness the union of the couple whose love had defied medical impossibility. As they exchanged vows, William thought about the winding path that had brought them to this moment, the cruelty that had separated them, the illness that had nearly claimed them both, the brave little girl who had refused to accept that their story was over. I promise, he said to Nancy, his voice carrying across the water, to never let fear or prejudice or any force on earth come between us again. I promise to love you and Lydia with every breath I have, for all the years we've been given, and all the years we still have to come. Nancy's vows were simpler, but no less profound. I promise to believe in miracles, because you and Lydia are my miracles. I promise to remember that love is always worth fighting for, no matter how impossible the odds may seem. As the sun set over the bay, and they sealed their promises with a kiss, 3 dolphins leaped from the water in perfect synchronization, as if nature itself was celebrating their triumph. 2 years later, the Sterling family stood together in the lobby of Lydia's Journey Center for Family Healing, watching as the 1,000th family received the news that their treatment would be fully covered, that they wouldn't have to choose between medical care and financial survival. 12-year-old Lydia, now a regular volunteer and unofficial ambassador for childhood cancer awareness, had just finished reading to a group of young patients. She approached her parents with a question that had become familiar over the years. Mama, Daddy, do you think our story helped them believe in miracles too? William and Nancy looked around at the bustling center. Families finding hope, children receiving treatment, parents sleeping soundly knowing their children were getting the best care available. And they knew the answer. Their miracle hadn't ended with their own healing. It had multiplied, spreading hope to countless families, creating a legacy of love that would outlast their own lives. The scared little girl who had boarded a bus in Tucson had started something bigger than any of them could have imagined. Yes, sweetheart, Nancy said, pulling Lydia close. I think our miracle became everyone's miracle. And in the distance, visible through the center's floor-to-ceiling windows, dolphins played in the evening light, as if to remind them that some kinds of magic never end. They just keep spreading, one heart at a time, one family at a time, one impossible dream at a time. The Sterling family had learned that miracles weren't just about healing bodies or defying medical odds. They were about refusing to give up on love, about believing in tomorrow when today seemed impossible, and about understanding that sometimes the greatest miracle is simply having the courage to hope. Their story would inspire countless others, but for William, Nancy, and Lydia, the greatest miracle was the simplest one of all. They were together, they were whole, and they had forever to love each other. In the end, that was miracle enough for any family.
Thank you for watching this story to the end. If you enjoyed this story, you will surely love the next one. It's as crazier and more intriguing as you can ever imagine. So do check it out. Click on the image showing on your screen right now to watch the next one.